Thanks for watching the Daily Debate live Wednesdays with Agreed Hussein here on Nile TV International. Tonight we'll be talking about a very interesting topic, and a topic that is actually very promising concerning building the Egyptian character. As we know that under the directives of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and as he said that we want to build an Egyptian character that is fit for the different challenges of all times. Throughout the last 7 years, and under the leadership of the President and his directives, the government took it upon itself to build the Egyptian character, mainly through focusing on the educational system and also on healthcare reform. We do have also more on strengthening the cultural identity and paying attention to sports. And this actually did yield fruit. And we've seen how His Excellency the President had honored the Egyptian youth who had participated in Tokyo Olympics 2020. It was a great achievement for Egypt. And actually the youth are considered to be today the cornerstone of the country. We're paying special attention to the youth. Preparing the youth for the labor market and also for leadership comes definitely since the very beginning at school, but also during their education at the different universities. Tonight we'll be talking about the Egyptian character and preparing the youth for leadership. We have all the pleasure to have with us Dr. Ahmed Tawab, professor at Munofeya University, and together we'll be reading that important headline. Dr. Ahmed, thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you, Terry, for having me. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. And together, as I said, we'll be reading this important headline, building the Egyptian character over the last 7 years. Dr. Ahmed, how do you see and assess this great experiment? Actually focusing on the human being is considered to be a very important aim and a noble cause. This is how we are going to enter the new republic,
right,
with this sense of focus of the human being, the Egyptian, in the forefront.
Right. Very accomplishing, very intriguing, and at the same time, this is a great job for Egyptian athletes. Let me just tell you at the beginning, send a message to all our athletes that they have made a great contribution in our modern history. And I think that they are sending a crystal clear message for everyone that by hard working, we can just overcome all the challenges. They made a great job, they raised our flag, and they made Egypt among the top countries on the list. This is something that would push all of us to feel proud of their performance, and they were honored by the president a few days ago. So I think that it's a message that everyone should take from such athletes, that we can just get our success, we can complete our objective by working hard, not to have any sense of desperation, but just to continue and to go forward in our track and in our path. This is what Egypt is doing nowadays. And I think that, let me just catch the word from the very beginning in your introductory part. You just mentioned something very interesting, which is education and the athletes and the youth. There is a strong connection between both. We've been talking about education for a long time because this is probably the powerful key for our success and for our progress. We are not talking about the president, but we are not talking about our present times, but we also talk about our future. And if we would like to shape the future, then we should build our youth. Mm-hmm. So something that is very important here connected with the youth is education. And I really feel proud when I read a few days ago that there are different categories for our universities in our country today. We have public university, and this is what we have gone through before. We have private universities, and today we have international colleges, international universities, international academies, and we have today also electronic universities. Mm-hmm. Why do we have electronic? And before we were talking about digitalized colleges, because we would like to build a new generation that could be qualified for the future could be qualified also for the challenges that we probably could face in the future.
Yes, taking from your words, building a new generation that is capable of being up to the future challenges, well, it takes a lot, a sense of perseverance, it takes thinking outside of the box, and also training and coaching, which is considered to be very important, how to let the student, how to bring the best out of the student in front of me. And I guess that you as professors at university are working on that daily.
Right. I think that you are touching a very sensitive nerve when it comes to the relationship between the professor from one hand and at the same time his students on the other hand. Because we, in the educational field, we are working harder in order to make something, we are creating new generation. We're going to talk about the developments that's happening nowadays in the educational field, especially in the Egyptian universities. But let me tell you here something that I read something very amazing, which is a huge company like Amazon. They decided to open a new branch in Egypt. Actually, they decided to build a major hub of its branch, but in Egypt, in Cairo. What does that mean? It means that they will hire not hundreds, but I would say thousands of Egyptian workers and Egyptian students. And such a huge company wouldn't hire students from here until they are qualified technologically and they are qualified
fully
for
prepared.
Absolutely. So in this way, that's what we are talking about. That's why Egypt decided to build nowadays a major district for electronic colleges. Then we have also other branch for technological universities. The philosophy of education today is different from the past. Let me tell you something from the field, from my work. That's absolutely right. So let me tell you that the Minister of Higher Education, and I want to give him a big salute as well, because there is a decision today not to use the hard copies of the textbook. We're going to make everything electronically nowadays, and this is a huge step. We have young generations using electronic ways, and I think that by this way, there is something that we should work on, the awareness. Internet today, this is an open world. Internet today, it could have the pros and cons, and so by building the awareness, by making our generation understand what's going on in the world today and to be fully aware for what's happening, I think in this way we can just build a very, very strong and well-qualified generation for our country.
Definitely, this is a main aim, and as we all know that the political leadership does not reclaim the Egyptian character, but also works on developing the Egyptian character to keep up with the current times by launching the different national projects all over the country. And as Dr. Tawab was speaking concerning the technological district, which is considered to be a great leap forward, also the building of new cities, and those smart cities are going to be like a beacon of enlightenment to the world. How do you see the educational experience at those smart cities? And definitely inside the smart cities there will be, and there are actually smart universities.
This actually reflects Egypt's vision for 2030. There is actually, if we read the vision, there is something very important to be thinking about, which is Egypt will be supposed to be a major hub for education, not just in the Middle East, but in Africa. And I have a deep conviction that Egyptians can do that, because as you can see today, that if we just go to international championships, you can just find Egyptians are making something great. If we just go for the educational field, when I was abroad in the United States, I found a lot of Egyptians teaching there, taking higher positions. So in this way, we can just believe in the Egyptian mentality. And I have a deep conviction, as I said before. I used to teach Egyptian students, and I used to teach also American students. And I can see that the Egyptian ones, that they are having something like very, very smart ways, but it depends on the way that you handle the whole issue here. There is also something that is very important to mention here, Tareed, in our context today, which is we are talking about a new initiative that we highlighted it before, that is Study in Egypt. Study in Egypt plans just to bring thousands of students. So Tariq, let me tell you that the U.S. is considered the superpower because one of the secrets here is education. So today, Egypt is trying to make the same. So by bringing students from outside and also sending our students outside, we can just, number one, increase the income. We can increase the tourism. We can maximize our income and our investments. We can also create multicultural environment. And this is extremely important.
The diversity that is there in those smart universities and this sense of having a multicultural around, what would be the benefits of having this educational atmosphere? How healthy it is to have this sense of multiculturalism, let me say, around.
Right, and as you said, the diversity, I think it sends a very, very important message to the whole world that Egypt is a beacon of tolerance, and Egypt is an attractive place. Egypt is a safe place for everyone, and we are also sending a message that Egypt can contain different cultures. Egypt used to be in this way, and I think that by having such a strategy, we can just build a strong generation. We are talking about the future. We are not talking about the present nowadays. Yes. And I do remember Abraham Lincoln said before that if you would like to talk about the future, we should create it. But I think that in Egypt, we have already not just to create the future, but we are shaping also the future by our generation.
Definitely, Egypt is shaping the future. Egypt is making history. Very important to mainly focus on the human being. The human being is our treasure if we are looking into the future. And that's why came the president's directives to build the human character, the Egyptian character. Comes in the forefront a noble cause. We'll watch this report. We'll be back.
Building the Egyptian character has always been like a far-fetched dream in Egypt until President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi assumed power in 2014 and put building the Egyptian character on top of his priorities. This has been evident in the Egyptian state's persistence in taking several steps towards that goal at all levels. After working on security and stability, Egypt's goal has been to build the Egyptian character and to improve the standard of living for citizens through housing projects, eliminating slums, followed by economic development to create jobs and activate the system of entrepreneurship. That's in addition to the presidential initiatives such as the Decent Life Initiative that secures a better living standard for all Egyptians. The government is always working on opening new public universities, upgrading all sports facilities across the country to pave the way for Egypt's youth to have a better future. With President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi assuming the presidency of the state, practical steps emerged in integrating young people into various executive institutions within the government. During one of his meetings with young investors and businessmen in May 2014, the President stressed the need to have, within the ministries, government agencies and governorates, a considerable number of young people who have the ability to work and make a difference. In this regard, the head of state pledged to train Egypt's youth on national strategy and security. As the political leadership really believes in the competence and ability of the youth to assume leadership positions and build the state, the governor's reshuffle that took place in 2019 included actual representation of youth to confirm undoubtedly that youth empowerment has come true and is not an empty slogan. It's worth mentioning that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is the first head of state who created an effective channel to communicate continuously with the youth and know more about their visions concerning the development of the country. This was attained through periodical national and world youth conferences that managed to create dialogue platforms between the youth and representatives of the governments, world leaders and influential personalities. Throughout the last 7 years, the country has developed visions to create the new republic, in which development rates are in progress, peace and security are prevalent, with the youth as competent leaders of the future. Long live Egypt.
Those are the Egyptian youth who have raised Egypt's flag high and really honored the whole country by their achievements. That's why they really deserve to be paying tribute to, as we've seen President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi honoring them and paying tribute to their efforts in Tokyo. And on more than one front, actually, we have Egyptian youth excelling in the different spheres, in the field of education, and we do have even, we have been recording with an Egyptian dean of a university and of a college in Germany, and more cadres, Egyptian cadres, and Egyptian metal is an excellent metal. Dr. Abdel Tawab, we were talking about education and building the Egyptian character, and talking also about those youth like Ferial Ashraf, who has been honoring all of Egypt, like Gindi, and those great names who have been giving a lot now in the field of sports. We have also, after listening to the youth, we had the fruit on more than one level, like in leadership posts, you can find today the youth and their representation as deputy governors, as deputy ministers on more than one front.
Right. And this is what actually reflects what it is called youth empowerment in our society. A new concept that we didn't have that before. So in Egypt, as a matter of fact, is trying to empower the youth in different leading positions, because there is a deep understanding and a deep conviction that they will lead the future. And I think that, and as you know, that there is the presidential program for qualifying the youngsters and the youth. This is a wonderful opportunity, and I would recommend every single person who would like just to be qualified for that.
The National Training Academy.
Absolutely. So it's exactly the same like what it is in France, as far as I remember. So by having something like that, I think that there is a deep conviction of Egyptian metal, of Egyptian mindset, of the Egyptian mentality. And I think that in this way we can create the first step of our future. We are talking today, the world today is different from the past. So we are talking about new horizons, we are talking about new opportunities. Just the other day, I was just opening a discussion with my colleagues about the disappearance of different jobs and the appearance of new created jobs. So this is a challenge. And by having such a challenge, we should grapple with the whole situation here. We should also understand that our way of thinking should be and would be different because of the challenges that we are being surrounded with. So I think that, back again to, because you were talking about the Egyptian character, this is something very important, because Egyptian character reflects the awareness. It also reflects our understanding for our history, for our treasures, and also for our soft power as well. When we talk about the soft power of our country, we are talking about number one, it's a generation. We are talking about the skills. We are talking about how can we create that and how can we move forward. So there is something positive happening on the ground, and we by such a program, we can just highlight such positive things in our life.
Definitely. Let us utilize those positive vibes and build on them, and talking about the modernization process and the labor market. And as you've mentioned, Dr. Ahmed, that some jobs did disappear, others are just emerging. How can we prepare the youth today for the labor market at our universities? And with the emergence and the start of the smart universities, definitely the approach for learning is going to be different.
Absolutely. So, and as long as we are talking about this point, then we should also remember that there are a lot of there is a decision today to create a technological center on every campus in our universities nowadays. Why would we have such technological centers? Because we would like to make the students to be qualified for using technology. But there is also something that I have to mention here. It is the responsibility of the professor, or the responsibility of those who are leading the students. I'm going to, for example, I'm going to take an example about my case. So I started to make a number of episodes for educating my students and educating my followers by starting an initiative towards in English in order to spread the knowledge for my followers and for my audience. So there is something that is called initiatives, and I think that it's the responsibility of each one to try to make that happening on the ground. We would
also,
like...
this initiates the sense of brainstorming.
Right,
So
absolutely
the
right.
people would come out with the new ideas.
That's absolutely right. So when you talk about ideas, there is something that I used to have and I used to do with my students. Every idea is welcome.
Yeah,
every
counts.
idea is
Counts.
acceptable.
Yeah.
Every idea could be discussed. So I tell my students, feel free about that. Express what you have in your mind, because this is the way of how can we create our youth and our generation in a creative mode. We would like to have creativity, and we would like to have innovation. Remember that creativity helped such countries like South Korea, like Rwanda, like United States. So we have today the power of such country like in the US, or in South Korea, we have, in the US, we have Apple company, and we have Facebook company, and in South Korea we have Samsung. It's all about, it's based on creative things, and in this way I believe also in creativity and innovation in education. Today we started to change our syllabi. We started to change the way of how to deal with the knowledge and with the information. Today, knowledge is available by just making one click on your laptop, or on, there is no need even to use the laptop. You use the mobile. Today, there is no need to watch the television. I can watch the YouTube. So the way of thinking today is different from the past. And so we should deal with such challenges. We should deal with such new developments happening in our society. So in this way, we can just convince our youth there's something happening on the ground and we should work on that.
Yes, there is another challenge which is how to protect our youth from what we call the invasion of minds, or what we call the war of rumors.
Right.
So they have to be quite aware, and you professors have a very important role to play in that respect.
That's absolutely right, and this can be summarized in just one word: awareness. The point here is how can we create and how can we build such aware youth. This is something very important. It happens by different pillars. Number one, it happens by reading and educating them on the right track. In my humble opinion, it also it helps in the way when I just build up their critical thinking skills. So in this way, students can think differently. And this is what we are trying to do.
Yes.
We would like to make our students to
build
think
their
differently.
character, let them have a perspective.
That's absolutely right. And by having such initiatives like bringing the students, international students on campus, then we can just create what it is called the diversity, the cultural diversity that can help. One of probably the soft power of our country is just to send a message and to have different generations together. We have, for example, Al-Azhar University and Al-Azhar institution.
Yes.
They send the scholars and they send the students and they bring the students here also. It's the same for Cairo University. At Menofia University, there are a lot of developments happening on the ground. So we are bringing the students on campus in order to exchange not just the culture, but the knowledge, but ideas, and in order to build something like a solid hybrid generation at the end that can serve our country.
Yeah, integrating the young with the different executive institutions across the country. And this is considered to be a lovely experience because it is reciprocal. And they are also going to maintain this rapport with those who are experienced, and definitely they can learn a lot. So how do you see this sense of mingling?
I think that it happens by bringing the students in a practical way of the knowledge. In the past, we suffered from the disconnection between the students' needs and the market needs. We suffered before of such a disconnection between what we are doing in the classrooms on campus and what the market really needs.
And application.
Absolutely. So today, we are just trying to bridge the gap between the two sides here. That's why I feel very, very supporting for the Minister of Education, Dr. Tariq Shawqi, for what he's doing. He's trying just to build a new generation by using such technological mindsets. So because this gap that should be handled in a very careful way. Another challenge that we had before, that was the education was very costly, and at the same time we had a very huge number of students without high level of quality. Today we are talking about the quality of education.
Yes.
We've been talking about how to increase the quality of education in different ways, because at the end we would like to make our generation to be competitive with the international standards. As I said, that we're going to have different companies coming to Egypt and to open new branches in our country. So I think that this requires all of us to be qualified for such new opportunities that can help our country at the end. This is what we are looking for. We would like to open our country for the international market, because to put our country on the international map, this is what we are looking for now.
Yes, and this is what is happening actually in the New Republic, marketing Egypt to the world. We've seen the new administrative capital, and we've seen the different smart cities with the unprecedented leap in the field of construction, and also the president talking about through the Decent Life initiative concerning providing safe housing to Egyptians and the youth also, while they start their new life, they can find a decent home. I guess that this definitely adds to their sense of self-confidence and stability in the first place, providing a healthy environment for them to grow.
That's absolutely right, and it also gives something like a huge meaning for dignity of the human character as well. That when we just see that the Egyptian citizens today, that they can find a safe and a wonderful place to live in. You can just see the great accomplishments happening on the ground. That's such a major projects that we have going through. I think that what we really need is we would like to market for what we are witnessing nowadays. And I think that by just talking about that and by having that sense of educating our youth for such new developments happening in our country, then we can just find a way. Remember that today that in Egypt we are offering different scholarships for international students to come, and Egypt will be sponsoring all the costs for international students.
Yes.
There is a huge step here happening that we can bring genius mindsets to help and to serve in our country. It's exactly what's happening in international countries like in France, in the United States, and in Asia, in Japan, in South Korea. I think that Egypt was in the past was doing something like that, and today we are just making that coming in a more practical way by using technological devices. So I think that today, Tagreed, if we would like to make anything, I do that electronically. There is no need to use papers anymore. And when it comes to the way of having electronic commerce and the trades, for example, so today the situation is different. When I ask my students, what are you doing nowadays? They tell me that they do every single job online.
Yeah.
So I can just see the change happening on the new generation. They are thinking differently.
Yeah.
And I think that this is what we need. We need a difference in the way of thinking in order to make a creative and innovative mindset at the end that can serve our country.
Yes. Another also milestone happening in Munofea, when the president was talking about providing healthy meals for the students at the inauguration of the food complex. That is considered also to be a very important hit, because it starts since the very beginning. You build the Egyptian character through also focusing on the kids at school and later in universities.
Right, and so that means that there is very special caring for the students, for their health, for their way of having the knowledge, for their way of being educated. There is a special caring for every single aspect that can affect positively on the character of the students, and this is what we really need. We would like to have a new generation that probably could have another way of thinking and another way of handling and grappling with different challenges, because we will sooner or later face such challenges in such open world today. And I think that we should be very well qualified and protected by having such new mindsets that can really help to build the generation.
Yes, definitely new mindsets, and this is what we're talking about, also branding Egypt globally. We'll be talking more about branding Egypt globally right after this break. Stay tuned. So we're working through more than one front in Egypt, working locally for changing the quality of life, for a better quality of life for all Egyptians, and also working internationally concerning branding Egypt's name globally. Dr. Ahmed, concerning branding Egypt globally, this is considered to be also a very important and a noble dimension that we're working accordingly. Right. And also through the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities and the Ministry of Culture, both combined, and the media, of course.
Right.
This can help brand Egypt globally.
That's absolutely right, Arid. And this is why there is, as I said before, and I'm still actually very, very understanding for something like that, that the connection between education from one hand, tourism on the other hand, between education and investment, between education and marketing. And I think that by having such initiative, study in Egypt, I think that we are making wonderful marketing for our country abroad. Remember that there are a lot of Egyptian scholars nowadays, or during the time that we are talking, that they are educating, studying, teaching, learning, training in different institutions, international institutions. And I think that, and I remember when I was in the US, when I was just mentioning the word Egypt, people were amazed by the name, by the heavy weight of the name. We are talking about the history, we are talking about geography. So people are actually, they have wonderful, wonderful memories when it comes to the word Egypt. And I think that we are nowadays, we are working on how to market such a name, and at the same time, how can we get the best benefits of our scholars abroad. As far as I remember, that there is a strong, a very, very intensive and strong networking today created by the Ministry of Higher Education to build such a communicative channels between the professors and the students here in Egypt and the professors abroad. Today, we can just find a lot of surgeries, medical operations happening in Egypt by some professors abroad. And it happens at the same time. So I think that it sends a very important message that Egypt coming on the top of the international standards when it comes to education. That can really help at the end for the education process. I am a firm believer that education can probably move our country forward and can also help in marketing for our country.
Yes, branding Egypt globally is considered to be a very important idea and noble cause. Also going hand in hand is building the Egyptian character. How can they both combined make a different reflection?
Right. I think that remember that we have in our country 1/3 of the global antiquities, and so when we talk about the historical aspect of our country, people sometimes feel amazed for that, not just abroad but even inside Egypt. When we just consider the iconic figures that we have nowadays in the sports, in education, in science, that we can just find that there is a strong connection. If we just bring all of such keys together, we can create what it is called the modern Egyptian character. So this is something very important. We've been talking about how can we develop that, and I think that by having such responsible institutions that can really make such ideas coming true. So I think that something like this would really be very helpful when it comes to building a new generation. We are talking today about providing funding to educational institutions. We are talking about providing support for every person who can just make something for his country. And I think that what the athletes did during the past few days, it was something amazing. And that was a great opportunity to see that the Egyptian flag and the Egyptian identity coming actually very, very clear among different countries. So this is something that we can just think about, that we can just get the lesson here, which is by having hard work and by having the patience, by having the awareness, I think that we can move forward at the end to serve and to help our country.
Definitely, and also our youth today are always in need of icons whom they can look up to, of role models. I guess that Ferial Ashraf is considered to be a great role model for all the Egyptian youth, and also with interviews and statements on her behalf, we've seen how she is working hard, how she's keen on training, and at the same time she's excelling in education. So education and sports combined make this combination formidable, unbelievable, you know, enthusiasm to achieve more.
That's absolutely right. There is a combination and very strong correlation between education and sports. It helps in making healthy students at the end. It also increases that sense of enthusiasm. It creates that sense of passion. It makes the students to be looking forward for the future.
I would like to be like Ferial.
That's absolutely right.
We will have today those examples of the youth who wish that they are going to achieve like our heroes.
And this is what our students need nowadays. They need role models that they can help them and they can guide them on the right track. I think that this is what we really need, and I think that every person could be probably a role model for his followers, for his students, because at the end that they are looking for a guiding person who can tell them what should be done in order to help and serve his or her community. Ferial was an example for that. Mo Salah, another example. So you have iconic in different fields, and by having such character, I think that we can make something like brightful future. As Martin Luther King said before, I have a dream. So I think that today I can see the dream of my country coming true by building new generations, by overcoming the challenges, and in this way we can...
And the new republic, definitely.
And new republic, as you said at the beginning. And in this way we can make our country to be the top among different countries on the international levels.
May our country be always on the top. Long live Egypt. Tahya Misr. Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed Tawab, professor at Menofia University, for coming to the debate live tonight.
Well, always a pleasure to be with you, Tawab. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. Well, we'll meet again next week. Until then, have all the best.